And our message is today out of 1 Kings chapter 19. Starting in verse 16. This is about not just hearing the call of God, but actually responding to the call of God. 1 Kings chapter 19, starting verse 16. It says there, and Jehu the son of Nimshi shalt thou anoint. This is God speaking to Elijah. And Jehu the son of Nimshi thou shalt anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel Meholah shalt thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. So God is telling him, he's giving him a task. But it's interesting because he tells Elijah he's going to go up to a man he doesn't know, Elisha, and he's going to anoint him to be the prophet that's going to follow in his shoes. It's his successor. This is kind of different because I guess you'd call it in chess the end game. This is like, okay, you're not going to be here forever. This is the man who's going to replace you. Kind of an interesting kind of insight. It's like we look at the fact we all have a time. And God is pointing out, this is the man who's going to succeed you. And God always makes provision. We get on to verse 19. So he, Elijah, departed thence, and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat. Now he told him, not just Elisha, the son of Shaphat, but he said of Abel Meholah. Why? Because, well, they didn't have street addresses, but if you only went by first names, they always said, like he said, Elisha, the son of Shaphat. So, I mean, that's almost like a last name. It's like, okay, he's this guy's son, because a lot of people with the same first name, right? And it's like, and he's located in Abel Meholah. But it's not like this is necessarily a city. It was probably a rural area, so it covered, a place where a few people were and a lot of people on the outskirts. So it wasn't precise. It was like getting in your car and taking an address or taking your GPS to a place. It's like, there was no MapQuest. So he went and he found him. And he found Elisha the son of Shaphat. Okay, that's good. You see, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. And Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. So, here's Elijah, and here's Elisha, and Elisha is obviously a rich man. Why do you say that? Well, a yoke of oxen was like a tractor today. And he's got 12 yoke of oxen. This is a big operation. It's got to be a big farm because he needs 12 yoke. And he's operating with 12 yoke. So this is a wealthy man, and he's busy. He's not sitting around watching everybody. He himself is working with them. So this is a man who applies himself. He has ambition. I mean, he's working along with them. So he's not expecting to do something he won't do himself. He's a man of action, obviously. So he's a wealthy man, a man of action. And Elijah passes by him and throws his mantle upon him. Just like that. No invitation, no pleading, no nothing, just throws his mantle on him. Like, wow, what kind of invitation is that? This guy's rich. He's ambitious. And you're not going to try to talk to him, convince him? No. Why? Because, when God calls you, it's not an intellectual exercise. You don't think it through. You don't add the pros and cons. It's like you either heed the call or you don't heed the call. Now you look at the situation, it's like, you can look at it and you can say, what's the chances of a rich guy who's ambitious is going to put all that aside to go into the ministry where there is no upside? Good question. He doesn't worry about it. Why? Because he's doing simply what God called him to do. And this is what's important for all of us. Do what God calls you to do. He wasn't there to convince, to try to argue, to entice him in some way. He just put the mantle on because he knew Elisha would understand that. What happens next? Verse 20. And he, Elisha, left the oxen and ran after Elijah. Ran after him. Okay. He's working and he drops what he's doing immediately and he runs after him and said, let me, I pray thee, kiss my mother and my father, and then I will follow thee. So without an invitation, he knows exactly what Elijah does, doesn't stop to think. And that's important, because when God calls you, if you start thinking about it, you're going to talk yourself out of it. Why? Because self wants what it wants. And that's not what the Holy Spirit wants. So you can think it through right to the point where you don't do it. He doesn't stop to think. I think his heart was already there. Why was his heart already there? Because he didn't stop to think. He wanted to serve God. And he was looking to say, well, I'm rich and I got all these responsibilities. I got all these people to take care of and all this land. How am I going to do that? How do you follow a man of God, a prophet of God, when he hasn't called you? He's not even giving out invitations here. He's not handing out job applications. How do you follow him? And the prophet comes by and throws his mantle on. Doesn't think, boom, he runs after it. It had to have been in his heart. And he says, let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I'll follow you. It's like, wow. He says, he's not saying, well, let me take care of my estate. Well, let me take care of all the financial affairs. Let me balance the books. Let me pay the bills. None of that stuff. Let me kiss my mother and father. And then I'll follow you. And Elijah says to him, go back. What have I done to thee? It was like saying, so what's the big deal? This is important for a number of reasons. It is a big deal. Absolutely. Elijah was a well-known prophet. He did signs and wonders, raising the dead, healing the sick. He was no small-time prophet. So it was a big deal. But it wasn't a big deal from two different standpoints. The ministry always makes room for you. In that sense, it's not a big deal. The primary issue here is heeding the call. Now, some people think, well, yeah, but come back to what he said. What about the estate? What about the people working here? What about my parents? Who's going to take over from me? That's none of your business. God's already made provision for that. It's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is whatever responsibility God gives you, not what you take for yourself. You can take all kinds of responsibilities. There's all kinds of responsibilities out there that you can go out and you can take on today. And it doesn't mean that God gave them to you. But when he gives them to you, you know he's given them to you. And so he understands and he steps up. What have I done to thee? God always makes provision. In the natural, he did nothing. In the spiritual, he did everything. By throwing his mantle on him, he says, you are the successor. Not you and your family. And not you or maybe 27 other people. You. That's important because you know what? God's calling each and every one of you. Not you and your friends, not you and your family, not you and whatever. He's calling you. He's got a call on your life. Each and every person has a call on their life. It's important for you to listen to that in the midst of your workday, just like Elisha. Are you hearing the call? That's what happened to Elisha. He was busy working, he was concentrating, he was working hard. It's like, I got to get this field done, I got to make sure these other guys are doing their job properly. It's like, there's so much work to do. And then the prophet comes and throws his mantle. Yeah, he could have said, yeah, I'll get back to you later. Didn't. What have I done to thee? And he returned back from him. Elisha returned back from Elijah, and took a yoke of oxen, and slew them. Well, this is a big deal. I mean, a yoke of oxen has a lot of value. Like I said, it'd be like a tractor today. And a tractor today is like, it's upward from $100,000. 100 to 250,000 bucks, depending on how big the tractor is. So it's like, it's not small potatoes. He kills them. Why does he do that? Well, it explains that. He slew them and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen, gave to the people, and they did eat. Well, there's more than just meets the eye here. It's like he's saying, I'm burning my bridges behind me. The strength of the ox that gave the increase that I was living off, I'm destroying that. I'm not just destroying it. It's not like I'm selling it off or selling meat. He said, I'm destroying it, and I'm giving it away. And the instruments they're used to do the work, I'm burning that too. I'm using that to cook the flesh to give away. That's really burning your bridges and knocking down the foundations too. And gave to the people, and they did eat. It was a celebration. It was a celebration of a brand new start. It was burning of bridges, but it was a celebration of a brand new start. He was telling everybody, I'm going out and I'm going to do something new. And I don't even know what it's going to bring. And then he arose and went after Elijah and ministered unto him. He understood what this meant. You read this, you can't really understand. Ministering was like a personal valet. You prepared his food for him. You did his laundry. You took care of all of his menial tasks. And he did that for over 10 years. Now, wait a minute. He went from a position of being the boss with everything to washing. He literally washed this man's hands and washed his feet, washed his clothes, prepared food for him. Well, is that a good deal? When you have everything and you're the boss and it's all yours and you give that all up to be a personal servant. It was. Because when the time comes, Elijah said, what do you want? What do you want? This is the prophet speaking to him. This is a prophet that raised the dead, healed the sick, that had the power of God. He said, I want a double portion of what you got. Now, he asked for a double portion for a reason, because he identified something correctly. He was the spiritual son of Elijah. He was entitled to a double portion. Elijah said, you asked me a hard thing. It wasn't hard for Elijah. It wasn't his to give. It was hard for Elisha to receive it because of the demands that are going to be on his life from that double portion. That's a whole different message. But the point is, he had his eye on the ball. He wasn't there for that long for what he could get at the end. He wasn't there to be a personal slave because he thought it was a great idea. He was there simply to serve. And he understood he wasn't serving a man, in the natural he was, but in the spiritual, he was serving God. It was like, for him, it was like washing the feet of Jesus every day. Feeding Jesus every day. He understood that this was a call that came from God, and this was for him to accept or to reject. And he accepted it. And he never ever complained about it. In fact, before Elijah was taken up, the sons of the prophets, which were schools of prophets that were trained up, they were telling Elisha, your master is going to be taken away today. Why were they telling him that? Because he never operated in the ministry at all before that. They thought he just didn't know. He wasn't allowed to say anything. He was there to watch. He was there to serve. So they thought he was just a servant. They had no idea until they saw the power of the double portion. That's a different issue. The point here is, he gave up everything because he heard the call of God. And in the natural, it looks like a poor deal. You give up everything you have to get nothing. He had power over everybody, and now he had power over nobody, and somebody had power over him. It became, in essence, like a personal slave. He had his eye on the ball. It wasn't about being a personal slave to Elijah. It was about serving God. And he knew there was going to be a reward, but it wasn't about the reward. And that's the approach we have to take. We have to hear what God is saying to us. In the midst of our busy days, in the midst of our priorities, we have to hear what God is saying to us. The call that God is giving us. And when we get the call, we can't be looking back. We have to burn our bridges behind us so that we're not looking back. Like Israel, when they got into the wilderness, saying, I remember the leeks and the garlic and the onions and the food. Oh, it was a good life. It's like, we can't do that. That was a previous life. You gave that up. You're walking after Jesus now. You're serving the Lord Jesus Christ. You're under his authority like you weren't before. In the process of doing that, God can and will work through you, and you'll manifest the power of God in your life. And of course, there's a reward. It's a spiritual reward, but it's a reward worth much more than anything in the natural. And that's my message for today.